Hey, thanks for tuning in once again to this video. We're continuing our look through this book by Henry Nouwen, Life of the Beloved. And we're continuing to look at what it means to be the beloved of God. And today we're going to focus on being broken and the reality that we all live broken lives. We're all broken people. And how we can live as the beloved of God even in the midst with that brokenness and how that impacts our lives in very important ways. So God bless as you enjoy the video. Hey, it's good to see you again. My name is Dave Larson, which you may or may not know, depending on whether or not you've seen any of these videos. Pastor at St. John in Woodbury, police chaplain, and head of a local youth sports organization, amongst other things. So it's great to be talking to you today. And today, as we look at this topic of broken, I've got my book today from Nouwen, I've got my cheat sheet here. Today, as we look at this topic of broken, this is a topic that you're familiar with. Again, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your life looks like, you can relate to brokenness. You know, as you look at your life, the physical, the relational, emotional, spiritual, mental brokenness that we all face, that you face. And I'm guessing that when you look at the different conversations you have in your life, you know, when you're catching up with people, I'm guessing if you were to look and really analyze how much of my conversations deal with some sort of brokenness, that when you talk to people, you connect with people, that there's a portion of that connection that you're sharing stories of your brokenness. It's interesting. That's kind of how we as humans communicate with each other, because we all live in a life of brokenness in some way, shape, or form. And we've talked about this the last couple of times. You know, we've talked about how we, as the beloved of God, the people of God, people whose identities, whole beings are enveloped in God's love for us, that we were chosen by God, that we are blessed by God, that He speaks well of us. It's easy to think, well, since I am so broken, that something's wrong. It's easy to get drawn in this idea that, again, I don't know if I'm the beloved of God. I think maybe, as we talked about in the last video, if you haven't seen it, we talked about this, that maybe I'm more cursed than I am blessed. And the thing is, with this brokenness, as I talked about, since we communicate so much, it actually becomes a part of our identity. It's a part of how we actually see ourselves. Nouwen talks about this again in his book here. He says, our sufferings and pains, our brokenness reveals something about who we are. Our sufferings and pains are not simply bothersome interruptions of our lives. Rather, they touch us in our uniqueness and our most intimate individuality. The way I am broken tells you something unique about me, and the way you are broken tells me something unique about you. Our brokenness is always lived and experienced as a highly personal, intimate, and unique. I am deeply convinced that each human being suffers in a way that no other human being suffers. I think that's an important thing to remember, is that, again, we're all broken, we all suffer, but we all suffer in different ways, and that suffering, that brokenness, becomes a part of our identity. It kind of describes and defines to a certain degree who we are. And the question then is, what do we do with our brokenness? How do we handle this? Now, I would recommend a few things. So one, and Nouwen talks about this, is that we acknowledge our brokenness, especially those areas where we want to be healed, we want to receive healing, go through the healing process. In order to do that, we need to confront that brokenness, address that brokenness, so that we can heal that brokenness. And again, Nouwen talks about this in his book. Let me flip to the right page here. Found it. He says, when brokenness is in fact just as intimate a part of our being as our chosenness and our blessedness, we have to dare to overcome our fear and become familiar with it. Yes, we have to find the courage to embrace our own brokenness to make our most feared enemy into a friend and to claim it as an intimate companion. The anguish and agony that result from rejection, separation, neglect, abuse, and emotional manipulation serve only to paralyze us when we can't face them and keep running away from them. And so again, as we look at the different types of brokenness that we face, and again, a lot of the stuff that we do face is more the emotional, relational, purpose brokenness. Again, we all have the bumps and bruises. The physical pain is hard, but again, what's probably more difficult is, again, the unseen brokenness. If we want to pursue healing, as I said, we need to face it, and then we need to realize we can't heal on our own. Again, this is why we need the body of Christ. We need fellow believers, people who can remind us of God's love for us, who can be with us through that healing process. Not only do we face that brokenness and deal with it head on to pursue healing, but also we want to remember to put that brokenness under blessing. And what I mean is, the temptation's always going to be there to say, all right, I'm broken, whether it's physical brokenness, again, a lot of times that emotional, relational, purposeful brokenness, and say, I'm cursed. But again, we need to be reminded that we are not cursed because we're the beloved people of God, where God speaks good to us. And so when we put it underneath blessing, it's saying, I know this stinks. I know my life is hard and I'm going through very painful times, but I know who I am. I know whose I am. I know I am a child of God, deeply and dearly loved by Him. And so again, not only do we take our brokenness, do we face it to pursue healing, not only do we put it underneath blessing to say and affirm our identity as the blessed and beloved people of God, but also we use our brokenness to affirm God's greatness. And the Apostle Paul talks about this in the New Testament of the Bible. Again, you got the Old Testament, you got the New Testament. And in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, who wrote half of the New Testament, he writes this in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 through 10. He said, "But he, that is God, said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, and hardships, and persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." And that's the thing, is when we acknowledge our brokenness, the more we accept it, the more we can see our limitations, and in so doing, we can see God's greatness and His glory. And we can also then be reminded of our future glory. Because we know that because of what God has done for us, what Jesus has done for us, that even though we face brokenness now, we know and we're guaranteed a promise that we won't be broken forever. One day we will experience perfection. And this is again what Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. He says, "Therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are all achieving for us an eternal glory that outweighs them all." And that's the thing, is when we look at our brokenness, we are reminded that because of God, we have a future that is indescribable. And so I pray that, again, whatever brokenness you're dealing with, I pray that in the midst of it, you know God's deep love for you. And even more so, I pray that you would look forward to the day where you'll be freed from that brokenness and experience God's presence for all eternity. So again, thanks for watching. If you like what you're seeing, click the like button, click the follow button. Make sure to share this on different platforms, get the word out, and live each day as God's beloved child. We'll talk to you next time.